connection to them. Okay? And as a result, we are aligning all of our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions toward the goal of the evolution, not only of our individuated self, but the evolution of all beings. Okay? That's the goal of the occult and occultism in general. So this is my personal working definition of the occult. When I use the word the occult, this is what I mean by it, when I use the phrase the occult. The occult is a body of science which is not widely known to the general population, consisting of hidden knowledge about the workings of the human psyche and the laws of nature, both the seen laws, meaning the physical laws, the physical sciences, and the unseen laws, meaning the spiritual laws, the laws that govern morality, the laws that govern behavioral consequence. Okay? That is my working definition of what the occult and occultism is in general. And I think it's a pretty simple, practical working definition. So when we're talking about hidden knowledge or occulted knowledge, what knowledge does occultism hide? What kind of knowledge are we actually talking about? Occultism comprises and quote-unquote hides two bodies of knowledge. Now I put hides in quotes because I just want to make a point here. We can't even look at it such that dark occultists, which I'm going to explain their motivations in a future slide, we can't look at it as the beings who want to keep this information back from people actually try to eradicate it and keep it out of people's hands. That's really not what they do, particularly in the modern world. Their main method of manipulation is dissuasion. They try to dissuade people from looking into these bodies of knowledge by telling them there's nothing to see here, move along. Okay, back to bed, nothing to see here, folks. That's not important, or that's not practical, that can't be used in your everyday life. It's of no benefit to you personally, practically in your life to learn about that. Okay? Or it's some quaint religious belief that has no bearing on anything, that was just made up by people a long time ago, and it's all nonsense. You know, that's the main method of dissuasion that is employed. Okay? And most people fall for it. Most people just, think there's nothing to any of this. I don't need to know about it. That's one of the heights of ignorance, is the phrase, I don't need to know about that. Okay? Now, just think about that statement right there. The highest height of ignorance is, the pinnacle of all ignorance is, I don't want to know about that. I don't care to know about that. But the people who think they have it figured out say, that's not something I need to know about. What do I need to look into that for? And that's how you know they're gotten. They're already owned. Lock, stock, and barrel. And most people are in that position because they think, all of this is just hokum. All of this is just religion. I tried to explain to somebody who's very concerned about the political degradation and the political process and the direction America and the world in general is headed, politically and financially. And I tried to explain, what really drives this underneath is the occult. Religion drives this. Religious beliefs by the people involved in dark occultism and their religious belief systems is ultimately what's driving the slavery system on earth. And he says to me, I don't need to know anything about that. I don't want to know anything about that. I said, oh, really? That's something you don't need to learn, you don't need to know about. He said, yeah, that's right, because I don't believe in any of that stuff. And I said, you're gotten. Right to them. They already have you. And you don't even understand, Because he said, that's somebody else's belief. How does that affect me? As if somebody else's beliefs can't affect us. And we're immune to what other people believe. Because particularly religious zealots and people who have very deep-seated belief systems based on faith and religion, right? They don't take action in the world based on those religious beliefs, do they? Never. They never do. And those actions would never affect anybody else living in the world. You're completely insulated from those behaviors. It's a child's view. At some point with someone like that, I have to set it down and say, you think you're fine? Well, then go be fine. At that point, because that's a deep, hardcore level of ignorance to be in. Again, that's not really surpassed by much of anything in the way of ignorance, which is something we're going to talk about, the different kinds of ignorance. But to go back to what knowledge occultism actually is comprised of, the bodies of knowledge, the two main bodies of knowledge are knowledge of the self and knowledge of the laws of nature. That's basically it. The knowledge of the self, the knowledge of the human psyche and how the psyche operates, its components, its aspects, its motivations, its desires, etc. What drives us? What's going on at a subconscious level? What's going on at the unseen level? In the recesses of the human psyche, in the psychological realms. This is what is known as the minor knowledge of the occult. The minor arcana. Arcana is a Greek word that means knowledge. Okay? A Latin word that means knowledge. I tell people, don't look at this because it's called the minor arcana or the lesser arcana as meaning of lesser importance. That is not what it means. It's just distinguishing it from that which is larger in scope as far as the kind of systems that it actually affects or that it governs. Okay, so you want to look at the part there on the left as this is the small scope of things, the scope of things operating at the individual level, at the individuated domain of the individual self. And then on the right-hand side here, you want to look at the major or greater arcana as simply being that which deals with the macrocosmic world, the world of large things, large systems of nature, okay? The physical laws that deal with dynamics and motion and gravity, etc. All of the physical dynamics, electromagnetism, etc. But then the major or greater arcana, the world of macrocosmic knowledge, also includes the knowledge of what I call natural law, the moral laws that govern the consequences of behavior of beings that have the capacity for holistic intelligence, or in other words, universal moral law, the laws that govern consciousness. These are the two bodies of knowledge that comprise all occult knowledge. And I ask people when I explain to them the two bodies of knowledge, what is not contained within these two groups? What knowledge that is of any significance, except, the football and baseball stats, okay, is of any significance in the realm of human life? I would say if you control these two bodies of knowledge and you're trying to dissuade people from looking into them, then you have people manipulated from the get-go. They don't have a chance if they don't understand these things. And it's the same thing like in the ancient priest classes that wanted to control the population. The priest king would go up to the top of the pyramid and tell people, hey, the great sky beast is getting ready to eat the sun, and it was an eclipse. It was a solar eclipse. And he's going to eat the earth next if you don't bow down and give me total power. And if you accept me as the intermediary between the gods and yourself, then, in a few minutes, the sun will come back and, life will continue on earth. And it worked beautifully because these people had no knowledge of the macroscopic laws of nature. They didn't understand the physical sciences and astronomy in particular back then. They didn't understand how that motion worked and how that phenomena worked. So that's how a differential in power can be created when you have a differential in knowledge present. A major point to keep in mind, and this is something people constantly take a unidimensional viewpoint regarding. So many people want to say, oh, all the occult is bad. It's knowledge, folks. It's not something that is universally good or universally evil. It's knowledge and what we do with it. That's it. It's a tool. It's a tool set. Would you say astronomy is good or evil? Would you say mathematics is good or evil? Would you say biology is good or evil? It's knowledge. That's all the occult is. It's knowledge. The consciousness of the wielder of that knowledge determine whether it's used for good or evil. So if I'm trying to create genetically engineered food products so I could sell people poison to undermine their health, just so I could make more money because I could grow more crops on less land, I'd say that's a pretty dastardly use of science, in my opinion, in my worldview. But science of biology and genetics is just knowledge. What we then do with them determines whether it's good or bad. The same for the occult, and that's how we have to look at it. The occult is a double-edged blade, however. There is, again, a light side to it and a dark side to it. And it's all dependent on how that knowledge is used. So the knowledge contained within the occult sciences can be used for good, which I consider the uplift of consciousness, or it can be used for evil, the manipulation of consciousness, the control of people, and ultimately putting people into bondage and slavery. To clearly distinguish between these different usages of occult knowledge, I refer to occult knowledge that is employed toward the expansion of human consciousness and morality as light occultism or magic. Now, some people won't make this distinction. They'll say it's all one body of information. I'm going to just group it all in. And it's a very dangerous proposition because those people, again, take a very unidimensional approach, and they usually take the approach it's all bad, and therefore none of it should be looked into. Religious people take this approach. It's why they don't understand the occult. Many New Agers take this approach. They say, if it's not pure spiritualism or pure spiritual mysticism, then I don't want anything to do with it. I consider that's dark stuff or sorcery. It's a very unidimensional and naive and childish view of this body of science. Okay? So that's what I call light occultism. When you use this hidden knowledge toward the uplift of humanity, toward the expansion of consciousness and the expansion of morality. So the other way of using it is for manipulation, control, and the suppression of consciousness. And if this knowledge is used in that methodology, then I refer to it as dark occultism or sorcery, is a perfectly acceptable term for it. Thus, the practitioners of light occultism could be referred to as light occultists, magicians, magi, light builders, or light workers. All terms that I feel could be used interchangeably as long as we're looking at it within the context of occult knowledge as I have defined it in my working definition. And you could look at the practitioners of dark occultism as dark occultists, sorcerers, dark builders, or dark workers, all terms that I feel are perfectly acceptable and interchangeable with each other. So why has such knowledge been hidden from humanity? Well, we'll look at why each set of occultists hide this information. Okay, first let's look at why dark occultists hide it. Then at a later point we'll look at why even light occultists sometimes conceal this knowledge. Dark occultists have deliberately hidden occult knowledge in order to create and maintain a power differential between those who hold such knowledge and those who are ignorant of it. We've already been talking about that. And through this mechanism, all power ultimately flows to them because knowledge applied is power in the world. Knowledge is not itself power, it is the potential for power. When you apply knowledge, then you can gain power. If you don't have it, you're completely disempowered from the very beginning. Dark occultists work through fear and manipulation to bring about compliance with their own selfish will. And that's what I would consider the dark arts in general. I would consider sorcery the act of applying knowledge in order to bring about manipulation in other people so that they comply with your selfish will, what you want for you only, not for the uplift of all. Dark occultists' work is always done in secrecy.